Hello everyone, my name is Nabil Oueida and today I will be presenting my book report on Katherine Isbister's book, How Games Move Us, Emotion by Design. Isbister is a human-computer interaction and games researcher with a focus on emotion and social connection. Her latest work continues her series Playful Thinking that aims at pushing game studies in the light of discussion and reaching greater public attention and recognition. In this book, Isbister criticizes that besides other fields of study like literature and film, the public conversation around games isn't as nuanced, well-informed, or educated. So she aims to prove that games have the ability to influence a player's emotions more than any other medium by outlining techniques in game design. My plan throughout this presentation is to go over the chapters in the book Katherine uses to explore particular aspects of game design, focusing on the points that I found interesting and how each one impacts the player socially, emotionally, with examples from games of my game library. In the first chapter, Katherine examines how game designers use choice, flow being the two main differences from other mediums, as well as avatars, character customization, and non-player characters in solo play to see how it impacts emotions and social settings. First of all, we got meaningful choices, in which I showed picking starters, conversation picking, or deciding the fate of a character. Choice is the most fundamental difference between games and other mediums. In contrast to watching a film, no one is able to immediately control what is happening, unlike a game. Being responsible for certain outcomes creates results of joy, anger, all based on the choice. Then we have flow theory, which Katherine talks about how it can make us feel like we're in the zone, or as I would say, turning my brain off. Designers ease players into a pleasurable, optimal performance state that is usually being achieved in games that require skill, timing, rhythm, such as fighting games, or in my case, Smash Bros. You have feelings of curiosity, triumph, regret, a lot of stuff when you're in the flow. Then we have social emotions. When designers offer interesting choices and keep players in flow, they're able to start evoking another class of feelings in their players. We experience such emotions when we're in relationships, for example, and we can see this in games like Death Stranding when we are calming down BB, or when we are witnessing sort of these emotional and sad actions taking part in the Last of Us series. After that, we have avatars, which are used to ground the player's identification. Through gameplay, players extend themselves further into the motivations, the visceral, cognitive, social, and fantasy possibilities of the avatar, forming an identification grounded in the observation and experience. Then we have NPCs, which game designers use dynamic and reactive engagement with them to add to the emotional palette of their game. NPCs have the power to invoke intimacy, or a real sense of a connection to the players. We can see that with games such as Last of Us or Guardians of the Galaxy when you're vibing with your crew, or with the patch from the Soulsborne where players will just end up killing him from the reoccurring appearance. Finally, we have character customization in the first chapter, which is another way game designers encourage emotional identification and connection with avatar and NPCs, is by allowing players control over how they look, how they act, and almost any other aspect when it comes to cosmetics or to choices. Getting into chapter 2, it expands on the previous chapter, particularly in terms of choice and avatar. It looks at multiplayer games and how they create social settings for players to build unique identities and form real relationships using coordinated action, roleplay, and social situations. Starting with coordinated actions, social psychologists have demonstrated that giving people opportunities for coordinated play, like cooperation in Little Big Planet, Monster Hunter, A Way Out, or It Takes Two, leads to greater feelings of connectedness, mutual liking, and rapport, and I fully agree on this statement being from the Monster Hunter community. Then we have social avatars and roleplay. Taking on a virtual self in a multiplayer setting brings the gaze and expectations of other players to bear on the player's adopted in-game identity, meaning you have to adopt roles, new identities to match what you're picking, bringing forth a new social setting. We can see that in Let Me Solo Her, which is now a legendary player in the Elden Ring community, as well as in hero-based games. Wrapping up Chapter 2, designers leverage the emotional heft of coordinated action. They provide rituals for engaging in social play, and they craft social situations for players so that social and emotional experience between everyone can be experienced. Then, we're at Chapter 3. It emphasizes the use of physical movement and the possibilities of the player's use of the avatar bodies to strengthen the emotional outcome of a game. Outside and inside of a game, movement has the potential to enhance the intensity of playing. We can see that with games from the Wii, such as the boxing in the Wii Sports. Motion and emotion plus extra immersion. Myself being more of a solo player, I want to focus on this aspect and this from Chapter 3. These controllers devices make it possible for game design to spark feelings in players by getting them to perform certain movements as part of gameplay and sort of adding this extra sense of immersion. We can see that in Red Steel 2, where we're a samurai doing samurai moves with the Wiimote, in Half-Life Alyx, and in my opinion, VR is going to be the leading technology in movement-based games later on. Getting to Chapter 4, this chapter expands on the other chapters by looking at identity building and social interactions in network games. It talks about how communities are built through these games and how they have similar emotional effects on players as communities do in the real world, you can say, such as Sports League, or in this case, LARPing and the FGC community. Wrapping up the ideas of Chapter 4, network games often draw on activities of everyday life to strengthen ties, gift-giving such as trading Pokemon, sharing of hobbies such as being in a server in an MMO, and special hideaways such as going to tournaments with other people from your game community to experience it all together. Scholars of play have always argued that the privileged place of play in social and emotional life shapes modern culture nowadays, and I agree on that very hard. Finally, this is a quick recap of everything that I've said. Games have the capacity to take us into different emotional territory that any other medium can't. We've shown how game design decisions such as the amount of choice, interactions, and social play can end up affecting how people connect, feel, and relate in context of the game, and much more. We're able to see this thanks to the book that games are an innovative medium that has rightful place along the others. Finishing up, what Isbister's book tries to do with its readers is guide absolute beginners as well as new learners through an introduction to game studies. So I feel like its limited complexity can let anyone interested in the subject come for the read and learn about how games affect us. I would recommend this book for anyone, and thank you so much for listening to my book report. Hope everyone has a good day.